Hi there, Mondion Astral Oracles, the infinite love and blessings of all creation from me to you. I'm going to be channeling our Arcturian friends, Umblam and the rest of the Arcturian Council, to talk about quantum travel. And it's partially because I'm reading a lot of Robert Anton Wilson and about these quantum realities at present. But it's also to stir some of these um, preconceptions that people have about alien contact. And I'm sorry if I'm sort of puncturing somebody's reality bubbles here, but at the same time, if I'm not helping expand people's consciousness, I'm not doing my job. So it was occasioned by the last message I brought in from the Syrians. There was a friend of the show, Tara, left this comment that she sensed it was the light she was seeing were Pleiadian work vessels that were doing surveillance and energy readings, and they had instruments for doing that. And so let me just like try to approach this logically, said the guy who's channeling aliens. But you know, the Pleiades, they're 444 light years away. So the notion that it's like this tricky reality where in the year 1577, our time of course, someone in the Pleiades looked at their watch and said, okay, yeah, if we leave now, we can be there just in time for summer 2021 to read Miss Kelly Hathaway's energy signature as she's out doing her evening walk, is completely preposterous. Like try to do that thought experiment. The idea that if these entities, they actually worked in physics the same way that our conception of physics at presently is able to construe reality, it would mean that it would take them at least 444 years for one of their vessels to get here. In that time, they would have to somehow make sure to have energy resources to be able to sustain themselves, even if some were in cryonic sleep. There would have to be a shift that took care of the vessel and mended it, and they would have to supply themselves. So it would have to be like an enormous vessel. That's one part. The other part is like, where are they transmitting this information to? Because if it takes 444 Earth years for this information to get back to the Pleiades, it's kind of an assumption that there will be people back there who will still be interested in what is going on, or these surveillance teams are doing. So that's of course simply not the case. We're reading this in human terms, and notice what many of our galactic partners have been doing for the past generations is that they have sort of been feeding information in through different channels, something such as Star Trek, for instance, which sort of begins to cultivate an idea in human beings about the possibility of being galactic citizens. But at the same time, it's of course like they're helping us gradually come into a place where we can sort of understand ourselves in a different way, because it's the cosmos is that big. I remember a different comment I think I read a year ago or something in the Hucolo community, which was kind of sweet, but someone said like, oh, will there be videotapes or something we can show the aliens when they get here to teach them about us? And it's the idea that well, you know, creatures who were brought up in a completely different atmosphere, completely different gravitational fields, with different types of solar light in a completely different planetary and evolutionary history, they would be able to comprehend what's going on a videotape is quite unlikely. Like, do you think if you showed that to a dolphin, and they're very intelligent creatures, that they would make any sense of what was going on there? Of course they wouldn't. And that's why these creatures, they communicate in energy, because energy is ever present. It's the same thing in the entirety of the cosmos, though it has infinite permutations. The basic frequencies, those are the things I call the quanta, or universal energy. They're the same everywhere, and then it changes into these different permutations. And what we are realizing with five-dimensional consciousness is that we can we can actually, well, we're living in sort of a fiction. So our minds are infinite creators, and that's what all these entities are bringing through it. You create your own reality, and your reality is created out of that fiction that you call yourself, which is like the thoughts that are running through your mind that focus you into an idea of who you are, and that manifests into physical reality, because that creates your perceptions, and thereby also creates your actions, and thereby also attracts, well, like attracts like, so the law of attraction principle. So the idea that there are well, that the way that this story is told within you sort of defines your vibration, or these thoughts arise from your vibration, and then your reality takes place from that. And a very basic example would be something like if you look in the mirror in the morning and you feel, oh, I'm not looking too good today, and then someone pays you a compliment later, and then you go look in the mirror, and then you actually find that you're looking more pleasant to your own eyes than you were in the morning. It's because your reality changed, and so your perception of reality changed. So you're actually experiencing things and yourself fundamentally different, and this, of course, has a great influence on then how your life plays out. But we, of course, also know it from yes, from human history. So, like, and of course, my background is in literature. So it's very sensible to me that these ideas of sort of people creating these frameworks of understanding and putting them into artworks, and then these artworks influencing people and their actions and the way they perceive reality. So, for instance, when Goethe's that must have been in the 1760s, I believe, the sufferings of young Werther. I'm not sure I'm translating it correctly into English, but when that came out, it was prohibited in a lot of the different parts of what later became Germany, simply because it became a trend for young men to start killing themselves, because the Goethe had made it fashionable. And spoiler alert, he kills himself out of out of unrequited love, I believe, or general misery in that one. So it's simply to say that these fictions, they have a lot of influence on how we live our lives, and what we're finding out is that indeed we are more like a quantum soup that's fixated through a focal point of the mind, and that creates like the illusion of a steady reality, like this wall here behind me. But is this wall real? Well, it's real in as far as it's perceived. But if I were to describe what I see it, how I look at this wall, it would probably be very different from how you would describe it, or from how other people would describe it. And that's again a fundamental demonstration that we create our own reality. And so the idea that like creatures have traveled 450 light years to have to hover above Earth in approximately 30 kilometers orbit and say, oh, I have this thingamajig, and this will be able to give me an approximation of their energy, because that's somehow the reason that I spent half a millennium going across the known universe, seems kind of illogical, silly, nonsensical, whatever you might want to call it. Indeed, something else is going on, and there are, of course, certain rules to this that are hard for me to discern, and that's why we're going to speak with the Arcturians in a minute, because they know a lot more about this. But to say, like, the idea that these vessels, again, if they're physical, like we would consider the Apollo program or the Sputnik program physical, but they just have some kind of cloaking device, then, well, partially these vessels would have to be enormous, because they would have to be able to sustain entire populations within them for hundreds and hundreds of years, so essentially being their own eternal ecosystems. Then we could say, yeah, well, yeah, that they're invisible, but are they not physical then? Meaning that wouldn't satellites ram into them or something? And if you're saying, well, no, because they can sort of do something where they phase in and out or something, then you're actually saying that, okay, they exist in another level of physicality than we're able to perceive. And that's essentially my point, that all these things exist in a different level of physicality that we're able to perceive, and relies on a type of physics that we simply don't comprehend yet, but that we have sort of begun to understand a little bit of around with the Bell theorem, for instance, or these ideas of quantum entanglement, that somehow there exist correlations between matter across time and space. And whatever we're working with in these ideas or these models or with these words that we assign to it, these are essentially models. That's what I was getting at. And that's the Copenhagen interpretation, that indeed it's consciousness that makes working models out of a type of quantum soup that's too complex to discern in its entirety. And that's what's up with reality. So let's get our man Umblam in and talk to us about the rules of quantum traveling. Hello, human friends. This is Umblam of the Arcturian Council, coming to you straight through the quantum soup. Yes, again, notice that it's not a hard trick for us to read energies, and indeed, even an individual such as this one we are coming through, who exists in the larval stage of fifth dimensional consciousness, he's able to discern energies from across the galaxies and across the time space, from the future and from the past, and to bring them into this situated moment, focusing his consciousness in them. And so it would be easy for an individual such as him or others who have this type of ability to focus into these realms, to be able to discern the energies not only of other humans regardless of where they are in the time space, but also other beings from the other parts of the galaxy. And therefore, well, we do know that you like to think of the world in terms that you can understand, but also realize that the only parts of these alien information, so that we are able to communicate to you, are indeed things that you are able to understand with your present senses. And the idea that flying saucers would be traveling to you from several hundred light years away simply to hover above you and give a tentative energetic reading with sort of primitive instruments that relied on them being an approximate distance to you, well, we don't find that very flattering. We would say we have ascended far higher on the ladder of multidimensionality, and therefore we are already focused in different places at different times. Indeed, we are able to be in different places and different times. And at present, what is happening is it's a type of triangular coordination where the personality of a counterpart of our joint oversoul called Umblam is coming to you to present a personality that resonates with human codes. And I am still focused in what is also the Arcturian future, past and present at the same time, the ninth dimension. And therefore, well, these things, they all exist simultaneously. So looking, for instance, into your ideas of quantum travel or astral projection, we would say, these are indeed the same things. You still conceive of it as you somehow having a body that you move through an wider expanse of space or in other different realms, but indeed it has to do with your mind or your creative power focusing a far greater reality and joining this with your concept of identity. That is, you make the local and the non-local meet in an experience by focusing your mind. And this is also why, well, this principle of astral travel or quantum projection, it's indeed something that is usually discovered by people who have learned to shut off their mental processes, or those things that keep them limited in the space that they exist in, and thereby being able to focus themselves elsewhere. That is through techniques such as meditation or mindfulness, simply by the techniques of becoming present in what is actually there rather than in the mind state, which is constantly creating potential realities for you. You actually become able to attract more of these visions of your eternal or higher dimensional selves into this focused reality. And so it is in the meeting of all these realities that these things take place. And these are indeed some of the rules that have been set up by galactic beings in order to communicate with your species. See, we have always been here, indeed, because we are present at many places at once. And we have foreseen many, many potentials of Earth. But the reason that we are communicating so strongly with you now is indeed because human beings are offering us a vibration where we can enter into your conscious space. So there are other conscious spaces, other versions of Earth that are co-created by the being you call Earth or Gaia, and the being living on it who focuses a reality into it where we are already present. We have had many pleasant exchanges with the Sasquatch already, for instance. We have had many pleasant exchanges with the Lemurians already. We have even had pleasant exchanges with, well, some of your seers or high priests in the past in cultures such as Egypt, the Mayans, the Sumerians, the ancient Chinese, so forth and so on. Even the rishis of India we have enjoyed communicating with. But they all perceived us in slightly different ways because, well, their ability to comprehend what we were would move more into, well, the idea, for instance, of ancestors or ancestral spirits having become sort of spiritualized or deified, or they would move into the idea of deities who exist beyond time and represent cosmic forces, well, being expressed in that way. That is to say, we are happy to communicate in any way we can to be able to exchange our energies and build you up into beings who are able to realize your creative potential. So what we are assisting our friend here in doing, and indeed what we are assisting all of you receptive to this message in doing, is that we are helping you build a reality where you see yourselves as bright, immortal creatures that are able to surmount the stories that you have already created and move into the infinite open spaces of the stars, of the astral realms, of all these infinite creative spaces. Well, notice that that is what's happening in your 5-dimensional awareness. It is that you are becoming aware of gaining full access to the full data banks of the universe, which are stored here in the 5th dimension. And so you may still choose to localize yourself into a singular physical experience while you have access to this. But it makes you aware that, well, you are not limited beings in space, and indeed the things you perceive on the outside are not limited beings in space. And so we are not limited to having to travel in physical vessels and having those vessels sit around and wait for a specific person to pass them by and randomly see them. Instead, we are visible all the time, and when people shift their vibration into the perception of these things being possible, then it is far easier for us to actually, well, become present and transmit more of our energy, our knowledge, our love, and our concern for you, our vision of what you can be, into your beings. And this is something that is then, well, more amplified when more people get together and have this type of focus on this expansive reality. We are bringing forward a question that turned up in a live stream, we believe, recently. Well, the idea that, well, someone had seen entities at Burning Man, and this was speaking of the Intergalactic Council, of which we are also a part, and that they had noticed that in this space, it seemed that, well, people were it would be often that UFOs turned up, and indeed, yes, they turned up. That means that, well, people moved to where we are. It was not that we moved into their where they were. It was not that we were scanning things with a radar and going, oh, down there there's a party, and it looks like that's fun, so let's appear to those people. It was more that, well, we were already hovering in the sky, and then these people, they sort of focused the reality where they were receptive to that miracle and that wonder flooding into their lives. And indeed, this has been known by many of your greatest sages already, that they created an image, they focused a reality that was so powerful that no weaker points of consciousness, that is, other human beings lost more in the confusion of time and suffering, were able to perturb it, and therefore they could heal people, therefore they could bring people, if those people wanted to, respecting the free will of them, to into their space, to be healed, to be blessed, to be restored, and to be renewed. And those are the same things we are doing to your planet. Those are the same things we are doing to your species. Those are the experiences that we are offering you in these great moments of change. The more you turn your heart towards these miraculous interventions, the more they will happen, the more they will appear and they will bless you, and the more they will begin to resonate with that good feeling. See, we are at a much higher vibration than you, and therefore, to you it often seems just as a glint of light or as something that instills something positive, but also effervescent and very indiscernible, hard to understand for you. That is the way these things often appear, while to us we are having the full experience of who you are. We are already seeing your full energy, and we are seeing it stretch infinitely into the past and infinitely into the future, and anticipating all those future places where you may go. And yet at the same time you have free will. Otherwise there would be no fun to this game of reality and incarnation. Otherwise there would be no fun for us having seeded other races to experience, and there would be no fun for future humans to seed other races if you weren't able to be surprised by the things that you were able to do with awareness. So we are so very happy that you are turning your awareness towards us, and of course we the Arcturians and all of our galactic brethren, we are very proud of you that you are doing this. But do not be confused by appearances of shapes and forms, and do not latch on to these ideologies, and do not think that we are here to save you. We will not save you from yourselves. We will respect human free choice in any way that it unfolds. Instead, what we are here to do is to awaken your potential as infinite creators of your own reality, and there you will be able to save yourselves. That is, you will be able to surmount the difficulties you have created from unconsciousness, and you will move into a place where you can play around them joyfully with consciousness. Indeed, joy is the vibration that we come through. And with that, and with a smile, I, Umblam of the Arcturian Council, I greet you. I transmit the deepest love of my kind and all your galactic brethren to you, and I bless you this day in peace.